Due to heavy rainfall, water levels in the Minjiang and Jialing Rivers, as well as the Three Gorges section of the upper Yangtze River, have significantly increased. The inflow to the Three Gorges Reservoir surged rapidly, reaching 50,000 cubic meters per second at 6 p.m. local time on July 11th, meeting the flood standard. The Yangtze River Water Resources Commission of the Ministry of Water Resources officially announced the formation of the Yangtze River 2024 No. 2 flood in the upper reaches of the Yangtze River. In preparation for the upcoming peak flood, the Three Gorges Dam began discharging water on July 9th. According to real-time data from the Yangtze River Hydrology Network, as of 2 p.m. on July 12th, the inflow to the Three Gorges Reservoir reached 54,000 cubic meters per second, with an outflow of 33,900 cubic meters per second. The Three Gorges Dam discharged through the 4 sluice gates and subsequently increased the discharge. On July 13th, the dam further increased to 6 sluice gates. By 6 p.m. that day, the reservoir's water level reached 166.4 meters, exceeding the flood control limit by 21.4 meters. The inflow was 42,000 cubic meters per second, and the outflow was 37,300 cubic meters per second. According to mainland media reports, the Yangtze River's second flood of 2024 is expected to reach the Three Gorges Reservoir on July 16th, significantly increasing pressure on the dam and further increasing the discharge rate. Earlier at 1 p.m. on July 11th, Jialing River 2024 No. 1 flood formed its tributary, Ku River. The Jialing River is one of the major tributaries of the upper Yangtze River, flowing through provinces such as Shaanxi, Guangsu, Sichuan, and Chongqing, merging with the Yangtze River at Chaotianmen in Chongqing. At 12 p.m. on July 11th, the Dongting River 2024 No. 1 flood formed in the largest tributary of the Yangtze Three Gorges Basin. This river originates in Shaanxi Province, flows south through Wuxing County in Chongqing, and merges with the Yangtze River in Wushan County. In summary, 3 numbered floods formed in the main and tributaries of the upper Yangtze River on the same day, all of which will pass through Chongqing, significantly increasing the city's flood control pressure. According to data from the Chongqing Hydrological Monitoring Station, between 8 a.m. on July 10th and 8 a.m. on July 12th, 12 districts and counties in Chongqing experienced heavy rainstorms, causing water levels in several upstream reservoirs to surge and discharge to increase. Due to the combined effects of heavy rainfall and upstream water inflow, river levels rose dramatically, with 29 rivers across the city exceeding warning levels. Flash floods erupted in many areas, river water backflow caused urban waterlogging, and roads were destroyed, resulting in significant losses. On July 11, the water level of the river in Jiangkou Town, Yunyang County, Chongqing, rose rapidly, leading to the collapse of a bridge into the river, creating a shocking scene. On July 11th, the Xiaoma Hydropower Station of the Puzi River in Pengshui County, Chongqing, was breached by the flood, creating a large gap. The video shows torrents of floodwater carrying rocks downhill. From July 9th to July 12th, the main stream of the upper Yangtze River and the Jialing River Basin experienced the largest flood since the start of the flood season. On the morning of July 10th, the first flood peak of this rise in water levels had already reached the central urban area of Chongqing. Mr. Fang from Chongqing witnessed the devastating scene of his hometown being overwhelmed by the fierce flood, an experience that still haunts him. Oh my god, the streets are completely flooded. It's so scary. The water on the street is already 3 meters deep. I tried to close the rolling shutter of my shop, but the water was so strong that it ripped my shutter away. On July 12th, flooding swept through Chongqing, inundating the Sanhui district. A resident trapped at home recorded a video, stating that the floodwaters were overwhelming. The shops below are completely flooded. The water level is almost reaching the second floor, about 2 meters high. Look, I've never seen such a huge flood. The water is so high it can float cars. The water level is still rising quickly. It only took 1 or 2 minutes to reach this height.
The newly built rainbow walkway on Beibing Road has also been submerged, and the trees have been washed into the river.
The factory owner suffered severe losses and lamented, "It's all gone. Everything is ruined. The raw materials and packaging equipment are all flooded." Wuxi County has also been severely affected by the flood.
I'm now at the ancient city of Daning in Wuxi County. The Dongting River beside me has already flooded the road. The water level has reached 209 meters. Shops along the streets are evacuating urgently, and the heavy rain is still continuing.
The footage shows the aftermath of the flood, with many vehicles scattered across the streets and roads destroyed by the floodwaters. Shops along the streets have suffered severe losses. A restaurant owner stated that he has nothing left except rent and loans. On July 11th, Chongqing's Changsou and other areas experienced river backflow, with water depths reaching up to 3 meters in some sections, flooding streets and ground floor homes. Houses and farmland on both sides of the river in Yuntai town were submerged, leaving many villagers trapped. According to mainland media reports, multiple areas in Chongqing, including Changsou, Zhongxiang, Fengdu, Dianjiang, and Wuxi, were flooded. Authorities reported that the heavy rain affected 14 towns, including Chenxi and Peixing, impacting 6,985 people. Among the hardest hit areas was Dianjiang County. Between the night of July 10th and the morning of July 11th, Dianjing County experienced torrential rains, with some sections of Chenxi town seeing water depths of up to 2 meters. A local resident commented, "It rained so heavily last night, and overnight it became like this. We haven't seen anything like this in decades." Many villagers were trapped by the rapidly rising floodwaters, and some who couldn't escape in time lost their lives. Currently, at least 6 deaths have been reported. Online videos show a residential area turned into a vast expanse of water, with parked vehicles nearly submerged.
I can't get out. I just can't get out. Can someone please come and save me?
According to mainland media reports, a landslide occurred in Longquan village, Ganjia town, collapsing a residential house and tragically claiming the lives of 3 family members. A villager surnamed Hu from Longquan village said that at 6 a.m. on the 11th, while assessing the disaster, they discovered that Wang's 3-story house had collapsed due to the landslide. Wang, along with his mother and son, were trapped in the rubble and unfortunately perished. The victims were an 80-year-old grandmother, her son in his 50s, and her grandson in his 20s, who was a college student returning home for the summer. The grandson's mother was not at home at the time. Local villagers explained that the land behind the affected house was soft and collapsed easily after the rain, causing the house to crumble. They also mentioned that many old and dangerous houses are prevalent in the area. The most severely affected regions are those below the county level, where crops near the river have been washed away, exacerbating poverty. The villager further described the rain as being as heavy as if poured from a basin. Floodwaters in Chongqing town reached 2 or 3 meters deep, submerging vehicles completely. According to mainland media reports on July 11th, the shelves and goods of a 2,000 square meter supermarket in Wudong town, Chongqing, were washed away by floodwaters. One of the supermarket's partners, Mr. He, stated that a sudden rainstorm hit at night. By the time they realized a flood was coming, the water inside had already reached over 1.5 meters. The supermarket's shelves and goods were washed away, with 90% of the merchandise damaged, resulting in estimated losses of 1 to 2 million yuan. Mr. He mentioned that there is only a small ditch nearby, and he couldn't understand why the flooding was so severe, as it had never been flooded before. In addition, Sichuan province, also located upstream of the Yangtze River, has suffered severe flooding. In Dazhou City, Sichuan province, the area has turned into a vast expanse of water, with floodwaters reaching the 2nd floor and many vehicles parked along the streets submerged. As the water inflow from the upper Yangtze River increases, the Three Gorges Dam has been continuously increasing its discharge, raising concerns among downstream residents. On July 5th, a breach occurred in the dikes along Dongting Lake in Henan, located in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River. The breach was not closed until the evening of July 8th. But after the breach, Tuanzhou Yuan in Huarong County, Yuyang City, Henan Province, remained submerged. There were 210 million cubic meters of water still trapped within the dike, and seepage continuing to appear in the second line of defense. The dike breach at Dongting Lake caused significant losses for tens of thousands of residents. The authorities handling the disaster was marked by incompetence and absurdity. From initially ignoring the road collapse on the dike to the failed attempt to block the breach with sand after the sudden collapse, and then deploying a massive amount of manpower and resources to close the breach only after the water levels inside and outside the lake had equalized, the authorities' response revealed their poor governance and decision-making. This culminated in local officials turning the delayed disaster response into a spectacle by waving red flags in celebration, further highlighting their incompetence. Even more absurdly, the authorities only closed the breach after the water levels inside and outside the lake had equalized, rendering the effort futile and politically motivated rather than technically sound. After the water level in Dongting Lake receded, the water trapped inside the flooded area could not flow back out. The officials, unwilling to reopen the breach, opted for the costly solution of artificial pumping. This led to the deployment of dozens of fire trucks along the lake dike to pump out water, creating a grand spectacle but also wasting a substantial amount of disaster relief funds. Meanwhile, the authorities have been unwilling to provide any compensation or assistance to the many displaced residents who lost their homes. If the Three Gorges Dam continues to discharge water, the water level in Dongting Lake will undoubtedly rise again, potentially breaching the newly repaired dike and causing further flooding for the already affected residents. If the dam does not discharge, larger areas of Chongqing will be submerged. According to weather forecasts, the Yangtze River basin will experience continuous rainfall over the next 10 days, raising concerns about how many more people will suffer from the flooding. Chongqing's flood disaster has resulted in significant loss of life and property for tens of thousands of residents. While expressing sympathy for the victims, many are questioning why Chongqing is repeatedly hit by floods and why both Chongqing and Wuhan have been flooded every year for so many years. According to analyses by several experts and scholars, the Three Gorges Project bears primary responsibility for the frequent floods in Chongqing. It contributes to the problem in at least two ways. 1. Increasing the rainfall during the rainy season in the surrounding areas of Chongqing. And 2. Elevating the water level of the Yangtze River since Chongqing is located at the tail end of the Three Gorges Reservoir. Scholars such as Jin Zhongwu and Guo Yihao studied the relationship between the water level and flow of the Yangtze River at the Kuntan Hydrological Station in Jiangbei District, Chongqing, from July 1981 to August 2020, and the water level changes at the Three Gorges Dam site. Their research showed that before the Three Gorges Dam began storing water, the water level at Kuntan was almost entirely determined by the Yangtze River's flow. After the dam started storing water, when the water level in front of the Three Gorges Dam was between 145 meters and 155 meters, the Kuntan water level remained on the same curve, indicating it was not affected by the water level in front of the dam. But when the water level in front of the Three Gorges Dam rose to 156 meters, the backwater reached Kuntan, elevating the base water level there. The inflow from upstream then compounded the elevated backwater level, exacerbating flooding in Chongqing. For example, on August 20th, 2020, at 10 a.m., the flow at Kuntan was 74,500 cubic meters per second. If the Three Gorges Dam had not stored water, the corresponding historical curve would place the water level at Kuntan at about 188.3 meters. But the actual measured water level at Kuntan was 191.6 meters, 3.3 meters higher than the normal level. This additional 3.3 meters was a result of backwater from the Three Gorges Dam. In other words, at 10 a.m. on August 20th, 2020, when the flood peak at Kuntan was near its highest, about 3.3 meters of the water level was contributed by backwater from the Three Gorges Dam. This explains why the flood peak flow at Kuntan in 2020 was much smaller than in 1981, yet the water level set a record. Of course, the amount by which the Three Gorges Dam raises the water level at Kuntan and in the urban section of the Yangtze River in Chongqing also depends on various factors such as the dam's discharge volume, river flow speed, and flow rate. As of the time of reporting, the water level in front of the Three Gorges Dam was 166.4 meters, while the water level at Kuntan was 176.8 meters, with a flow rate of 29,700 cubic meters per second. According to historical data, without the Three Gorges project, the water level at Kuntan should be around 173.7 meters. The water level was thus raised by about 3.2 meters. While 3.2 meters may not seem like much, the Chinese Residential Design Code specifies that the floor height of residential buildings is 2.8 meters. This means that 3.2 meters of water is enough to completely submerge an entire floor. Former CCP Politburo Standing Committee member and Vice Premier Wang Yang once served as a chairman of the Three Gorges Project Overall Completion Acceptance Committee. From 2005 to 2007, he was a party secretary of Chongqing, during which time he oversaw the development of Chongqing's urban master plan. This plan stipulated that all major public buildings in Chongqing must be constructed at an altitude of over 220 meters. In other words, areas of Chongqing below an altitude of 220 meters would become flood zones in the event of a once-in-a-century flood, being designated as restricted development or abandonment areas in the urban planning. Consequently, Chongqing abandoned landmark buildings at Chaotianmen Dock, and areas like Xiqi-Kou were also designated as abandoned zones. Many roads, shops, and residential buildings along the river in Chongqing, including landmark areas like Xiqi-Kou, Chaotianmen, and Nanbing Road, are situated at a relatively low altitude. The ground elevation at Chaotianmen Dock is only about 160 meters. Since the Three Gorges Dam began high-level water storage in 2008, the backwater effect has exacerbated Chongqing's floods 4 times. They are November 2008, September 2011, July 2012, and August 2020, averaging once every 3 years, with the August 2020 flood being the most severe. According to professional calculations, if an extreme flood occurs between Chongqing and the Three Gorges Dam, or if the dam experiences unexpected drainage issues, causing the water level in front of the dam to reach 175 meters, it would raise the flood water level at Kuntan in Chongqing by an additional 10 to 16.5 meters. Based on the current flow estimates, if the water level in front of the dam reaches 175 meters, the water level at Kuntan would be at least 187 meters. When the Three Gorges project was designed and constructed, the Chinese government claimed it had flood control, power generation, and navigation functions. But what happens if the Three Gorges Dam truly performs its flood control function? A week ago, the downstream Dongting Lake area experienced flooding, leading to a dike breach on July 5th. Authorities claimed that the Three Gorges Dam reduced the outflow to help Dongting Lake mitigate the flood. The result of this flood retention was a flooding of Chongqing. On July 10th, the Three Gorges Dam opened one floodgate, increasing the outflow from 27,000 cubic meters per second to 31,000 cubic meters per second. As of the time of reporting, the outflow had reached 37,300 cubic meters per second, while the Yangtze River's number 1 flood downstream had not yet reached the sea. During the process, the Three Gorges Dam played the following roles. 1. It continued to discharge during the Dongting Lake flood, worsening the flood there. 2. It retained floodwater, causing Chongqing to flood. 3. After flooding Chongqing, it discharged floodwater downstream, flooding Dongting Lake and Wuhan. The newly repaired dike at Dongting Lake might be breached again, and the already flood-affected residents who had just returned home might face flooding once more before they can even clean up. Why does the Three Gorges Dam, when activated for flood control during the flood season, always result in flooding both upstream in Chongqing and downstream in Wuhan? Renowned hydraulic engineering expert Wang Wei-Lo pointed out that the flood control capacity of the Three Gorges Reservoir is not as large as the authorities claim. According to official data, the total storage capacity of the Three Gorges Reservoir is 39.3 billion cubic meters, with a flood control capacity of about 22.2 billion cubic meters, accounting for only 8% and 5% of the Yangtze River's flow at the dam site, respectively. Technically speaking, its flood control benefits are very limited. Furthermore, even if this claimed flood control capacity is based on incorrect data, the error stems from significant mistakes in the hydraulic gradient calculations in the design of the project. The design of the Three Gorges project considered the hydraulic gradient to be only 1 or 2 meters. This means that when the Three Gorges Reservoir is full and both upstream and downstream are discharging at maximum flow, The water level difference between the front of the dam and the tail of the reservoir could be 1 to 2 meters. In reality, the hydraulic gradient of the Three Gorges Reservoir is variable and can fluctuate significantly. Even during the dry season in October 2010, the actual hydraulic gradient of the Three Gorges Reservoir was less than 1 meter. But this should not lead to the conclusion that the hydraulic gradient is also less than 1 meter during the flood season. In fact, during the flood season, the flow is much greater and the hydraulic gradient increases substantially. For example, on August 6, 2009, the water level in front of the Three Gorges Dam was 145 meters, while the water level of Chaotianmen in Chongqing was 183 meters, causing flooding in Chongqing's main urban area with a water level difference of 35 meters. While upstream flooding and other factors contributed, it is clear that the hydraulic gradient of the Three Gorges Reservoir was a major cause. Without the Three Gorges Dam, a flood event might cause flooding in Wuhan once then pass. With the Three Gorges Dam's flood control, Wuhan could be flooded at least twice, and Chongqing would also be flooded once. The water storage of the Three Gorges also leads to a significant increase in rainfall in the surrounding mountainous areas, resulting in more frequent flooding. In 2022, Zhaozi Hao and others from Nanjing University of Information Science and Technology studied data from 10 meteorological stations in the Three Gorges Reservoir area, analyzing the climate change characteristics over the past 66 years and the impact on the Three Gorges Reservoir on local climate change. The results show that the water storage in the Three Gorges Reservoir has caused an increase in local precipitation affecting an area of 2,915 square kilometers near the dam, with the farthest impact extending 109 kilometers from the dam. Dazhou is exactly 109 kilometers from the Three Gorges Reservoir. A 2006 study by NASA used satellite data and high-precision digital simulation technology to analyze the impact of the Three Gorges Reservoir on regional rainfall and surface temperature. The basic conclusion was that the project significantly increased precipitation in the area between the Daba Mountains and the Qingling Mountains north of the Yangtze River. Former chief engineer of the Regional Geological Survey Team of the Sichuan Provincial Bureau of Geology and Mineral Resources and geological expert Fan Xiao said in an interview with China Business News, "Since the Three Gorges Reservoir began storing water in 2003, the climate in the reservoir area has shown significant changes in temperature, humidity, and precipitation." Fan Xiao and other experts found that more notable than the climate changes in the reservoir area were the rare phenomena of continuous heavy rainfall and flooding in the northeastern part of Sichuan province, 50 to 100 kilometers north of the reservoir area. This area includes Dazhou of Sichuan province, Bazong, Guang'an, Nanchong, and Kaixin in Chongqing, with Dazhou being the most severely affected. Field monitoring by Fan Xiao and other experts revealed that in September 2004, the second year after the Three Gorges Reservoir began storing water, Dazhou, historically drought-prone, experienced an unprecedented heavy rain and flood disaster, with water levels rising by 20 to 30 meters in many towns along the river. Experts analyzed heavy rain events in northeastern Sichuan from 2004 to 2014 based on the start and end times, scope, rainfall amounts, and flood levels, casualties, and direct economic losses. They found that from 2004 to 2014, there were at least 32 heavy rain events, with 97% of them being major storms with 100 to 250 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours, or exceptionally heavy rains exceeding 250 millimeters in 24 hours. Out of these 32 heavy rain events, economic loss data was collected for 23 events, with direct economic losses amounting to 29.7 billion yuan, or about 4.3 billion US dollars. Additionally, among the 12 events for which death and missing person data were collected, 198 people died and 106 were missing. During the assessment of the Three Gorges project, Chinese Academy of Sciences experts conducted related studies and forecasts on its climate impact. They described the impact on precipitation as follows. The increased moisture brought by warm and humid airflows to the Three Gorges Reservoir area, combined with evaporation from the reservoir surface, should condense and fall as rain within a certain range around the reservoir under certain conditions. But due to the cooling effect of the reservoir, the warm and humid airflow will be pushed to higher, more distant windward areas according to the prevailing wind direction in different seasons, increasing rainfall to those regions. The areas with significantly increased heavy rains, such as Dazhou, Bazong, Guang'an, Nanchong, and Kaishan in Chongqing, are located on the southern slope of the Daba Mountains, higher in elevation than the areas along the Yangtze River and the central Sichuan Basin. Rainfall in these areas generally flows along the valleys, eventually converging into the Jialing River and entering the Yangtze River at Chaotianmen in Chongqing. From the above analysis, it is evident that the Three Gorges Dam is significantly responsible for the flooding in Chongqing, but the Chinese authorities have consistently claimed that extreme weather around the area is unrelated to the project. Feel free to share your thoughts and discuss in the comments below.